Shauna here from Wellness Seeker on this lovely Monday evening with your wellness as usual and as promised for the week ahead. So thanks so much for joining me live as usual, and I hope that the sound is all good and that we are all working and that we should be broadcasting properly. So if whoever has joined us there, if they want to let me know that it's all live and good, we will get going. So just making sure that the sound is all good. If you can give me a thumbs up, Michael, that'd be great. And let me know the sound is grand. We can get going. Perfect. See that coming through. That's perfect. Okay. So tonight's topic is ultimately, as promised, about the mystery of the pain and how the mystery of the pain that we have is always in our history. Now, it's a big topic, but I am going to try and cut through the mustard in about 5 minutes, and I won't keep you too long. So the video is for you if you have been stuck trying to get to the bottom of something, stuck in trying to understand what it is that keeps causing this pain, stuck in trying to just basically understand the emotional turbulence that you're feeling, the difficulty that you're feeling. So this video is for you if that is what you're experiencing, or if you are a therapist, I see some of these on here, and you are helping clients get to the bottom, you might love this, and you might love this. So hi Mary, hi Anne, hi Maureen, so you're all very welcome. So that's it. Let's get started. So that statement itself, the mystery of our pain is in our history, is kind of quite a standard statement for all of us, basically, in the healing professions, in the psychology professions, because it is well known that, you know, when you go for counselling, you have to go way back and you have to dig deep and all of that stuff that counselling is aligned with, or talking therapies are aligned with. So that's standard knowledge. But here's what I find, and here's what I find the detail, and here's my experience, and that's what I really want to share with you tonight. I want to share with you my therapeutic experience and professional experience, but also my personal experience more than that, is how you can cut through the mustard, how you can get to the actual mystery part, and how you can get quicker. We can get there quicker. So I want to kind of share that with you and I can share the detail of that. So the first thing that I would like to discuss and talk about is history. History. What does that mean? So the mystery of our pain is in our history. So when we talk about history, we think that we have to go way back. We have to go back into childhood. We have to go back, you know, some people even kind of progress back into the womb. They think they have to go that far back. But what does actually history mean? Does history mean that you have to go right back into your childhood to get rid of this pain, to get rid of this difficulty? Well, my experience tells me that is not necessarily true. History is so unique to you. Because what we're actually looking for in the history, what we're actually looking for is a point in time where you've been hurt or wounded, or in other words is traumatized, where you have been hurt or wounded emotionally and then mentally. There's a point in time. Now, when is that point in time? That point in time is so unique to each and every one person. And what happens is people have the notion that they have to go way back into the childhood, but it doesn't have to necessarily happen like that. I have seen clients where the pain or the emotional disturbance or the difficulty or the trauma or whatever word you want to put in this has happened 2 years ago from a work bullying situation, that has happened 5 years ago from a trauma that they've experienced, that has happened maybe 10 years, that has happened in their teens. Not everything ends up in childhood. Not everything ends up back in and it is your mother's fault or your father's fault or the way you grew up. Not everything ends up back there, and that's what's so vital about this. When you're experiencing pain in the now, most people won't go to therapy because they think they have to delve back into the detail or the depths of their life to understand themselves, and that is not necessarily true. History is so important, but it's the history of your pain, not your total history. So if that makes sense, if you give me a wee thumbs up or a heart, if you've been ploughing along trying to, because I know a lot of people are stuck in the mire of trying to make sense of all of this pain that they're feeling or where it's coming from, and they're in the mire of the difficulty. They're in the mire of all of the thoughts, kind of going round and round and round in their own heads, trying to find what this is. So history in that statement is very important. Your history, your difficulty, the time when it went wrong for you. It's not always deep in the recesses of your childhood. This is what's very important. So if there's anybody on here that's considering therapy, that's considering talking therapies, you don't always have to go back to go forward, guys. I'm going to say that about 10 times today. You don't always have to go back into the minutiae of your childhood to make sense of where you are today. That's really important. Number 2. So go back to when you were traumatized. God, we use that word so well, don't we? Traumatized. What does traumatized actually mean? You see, here's another problem. When people are looking for where their pain is coming from, they go looking for the trauma. They go looking for the big moments. They go looking for the abuse, or if it's, physical abuse or emotional abuse or sexual abuse. They go looking for the big moment. They say to themselves, there has to be something really big here. I feel so bad in the now. There has to be something really big in my past that I haven't just uncovered, that I don't remember, and I'm afraid to go back. I'm afraid to have a look in case I uncover something so horrendous that I'll never get over when I see it. Trauma, when we go looking back in our history for trauma. So one, people are really afraid that they'll find something that's massive they'll never get over. And the second thing is that people go looking for something that's very, very big, because if they have to find something big, they equate to the pain that they're in today. And then when they don't find the big thing, when they have been reared in a lovely house, when they've been brought up with lovely parents, when they have, and maybe there wasn't 2 parents at home, but the one parent that was there was lovely, and they had everything they wanted, and they never wanted for anything, and they can't equate the pain that they're holding today. They can't understand that. They just lost. They don't understand where the trauma is. And here's one thing I would say to you, because this is absolutely massive. The mystery of your pain is not always in the big newsworthy moments. It doesn't have to reach the news for it to have caused you trauma. Trauma is so, again, unique to you. It's a time, it's a place, it's a thing that has happened that has caused you concern, it has caused you pain, it has caused you hurt. It does not matter whether somebody else wouldn't have reacted the same. It doesn't matter whether it's not newsworthy. It does not matter whether it's the tiniest thing in the tiniest moment. It doesn't matter. And what happens is, I'm really passionate about this, because what happens is when we are looking for the big moments, we miss the small stuff. We miss the stuff that did the damage. And we never end up getting to that point, that place, that point where we can say, there it is, there's where it was, there's what happens, and we keep ourselves stuck. And the other thing that we do is we measure hurt. I have no right to feel like this, because if I was her and she was reared in brought up in a much more difficult place, then it's so, I don't deserve to feel like this, coming from where I came from, having the upbringing that I got. I have no difficulty to talk about it. When we measure hurt, we keep ourselves blocked. So I'm going to recap those 2 points. History. History doesn't have to be in your childhood. History is whenever you had that moment, that memory, that difficulty, that experience that changed how you felt about you and the world around you. And the weight of that trauma and that moment doesn't have to be traumatic. Traumatic in the sense that it has to be newsworthy. If it was traumatic to you, because in that moment, because in that time, it was so sore and so emotionally powerful, then that is what trauma is to you, and that is, you are perfectly entitled. They have felt what you've felt, they experience what you've experienced, and they have that trapped inside you. Perfectly entitled. Now we're starting to get into the mystery. When we lift up those two blocks, the third thing rather, is your biggest clue to this mystery is your current pain. See whatever you're feeling in the now. See that reoccurring, difficult, weighty emotion reoccurring in the now. That is your biggest clue. That emotion, whilst very, very difficult and so difficult to get into, that emotion that you're consistently and reoccurrently feeling is your biggest clue. If you can get into that emotion, it will take you straight, no joke, to the memory, to the trauma, to the moment, to the difficulty. That feeling is like a key to a door that will open up this mystery. But here's the problem. Most of us try to avoid that feeling. Most of us won't allow ourselves to sit in the feeling long enough to allow it to do its work. So when I'm working with clients, it's the one thing that I always do. I always try to trap into the feeling that is causing them the pain and the hurt and the now. And you can be, I could put my house on it. What that will do is will open up the memory. It'll open up the time. It'll open up the place. It'll open up the difficulty. It'll open up the experience. And then the magic happens. Because what happens then is that this memory, that this feeling, that this hurt, that this pain can be re-experienced. Now when we're re-experiencing it, it takes all of the drama, it takes all of the weight, it takes all of the meat, the energy out of the feeling, and that feeling will never be felt with such vigor ever again once it's re-experienced. The second thing we can do is re-symbolize. Now, I'm not going to get into that too much tonight, but what you can do is that you can get under the re-symbolizing the feeling because you had an experience and you told yourself something about yourself or this world in that moment, in that time that seems true. And what you can do is re-symbolize it, and there's where the power is. Because now you've unlocked the mystery. You've unlocked the mystery of where this is, where this pain is. And what you start to find is you start to find your healing. Now, what I will say is some people that end up in therapy can't really access or find it difficult to access some of the memory from their past, have closed stuff down, can't really get the grips with the thinking behind it. And what I would say to you is that is okay, because you don't have, first of all, you don't have to go back to go forward. You can stay in the now, you can stay in the feeling in the now, because there's a brilliant and amazing psychologist way back in the day who was called Alder. And he said that show me your earliest defining moment, so a moment that has caused you trauma, as explained earlier in the video, and I will show you the rest of your life. I think his words were, and such is life. Because what we know is what you're experiencing in the now will have had its root in that difficult moment. So we don't need to know that difficult moment. We don't need to know it in detail. We don't need to re-symbolize it. You can do all of that work in the now. So if you can't go back, that is fine. We'll always work in the now because that memory, that feeling is with you here in the now, and you can unravel the mystery of the pain in the now. But all I need you to know tonight is that it's very, very, very possible. And unraveling the mystery of your pain is so doable and so achievable, because I see it every single day. I see people tracking back. I see them not letting their history get in the way, not going back into the depths of when they were 2 or 3 and they didn't have a memory. I see when they were accepting that that one moment in time was traumatic for them and that is okay, and they're letting themselves access the feeling. I see them re-experiencing the feeling and never coming back to that place again, re-symbolizing it, and it loses its power and it ceases to show up in the now. And it is amazing. It's amazing work and it can be done. So if there's anybody out there that's struggling with this reoccurring pain, with this thing that they can't get their heads around, then please share this video, because there are so many fantastic workers out there helping people do this stuff, that the more we let people know that this type of help is available, then the more people we can reach, and the more people that can be let go of the pain of holding on to the stuff that no longer serves them, that is absolutely killing them. So hopefully that is helpful to you. I'll just do a recap. Remember, when you're going back, you don't have to always go back to go forward. You can sit and work with the pain that you're in today, because that will give you enough clues. If you can get back, if you can track back from the feeling that you're in now in the memory, then that memory will help you re-symbolize and re-experience the difficulty and take all the weight out of the feeling that you're feeling now, and then the re-symbolization of it will let go. You'll be able to then just drop it. And don't always look for the trauma, and allow yourself to feel how you felt. Just because it was important to you in that moment, that's more than enough reason for it to hurt. So hopefully that has helped. If there's anybody that has any questions, then fire away. If you don't want to ask me any questions on here, then feel free to PM me. It's no bother whatsoever. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to hear what you would like. If there's any particular topics, is there anybody struggling with anything? Is there anybody that would like help with something that they would like a video on? Is there, and also if there's any other experts out there in this healing field that would like to share some of the work that they do, and hoping to join up with some other practitioners in the future and share some of their information as well. So if there's anybody on here that has any questions or has anything that they'd like me particularly to do for them, then please PM me. I will be more than happy. And it saves me running around looking for a nice video for you, second guessing you and wondering how I can help you. So if you can let me know how I can help, I will be more than happy to help. So good night for now, and I shall see you all. There's no questions coming through, so I might see them in the PMs. So I will see you all next week. Next Monday, as usual, we're having a live video, and hopefully we have a girl who practices bowing. She's going to give us some details about bowing and how that works with clients who are struggling with anxiety. So good night for now, and I shall see you all soon. And thanks so much for joining me. See you soon.